So I have booted up Maya. So what I've done here is that I have gone to settings. So this is the usual Unity to Maya to Unity scale nonsense. So a quick way of getting to your settings is to click the little running man button down there, man with cog. So go to your settings. So you want to put your working units to meters. Leave everything else the same. So meter under settings. So let's close that. So the next thing is that you want to go to your display, and this little box here will open up the sub option menu. So grid lines every one unit means you've got a grid line every meter. So it's got no subdivisions at the minute, and I've made the entire grid 20 by 20. So if we just have a look, there you go, 20 by 20. There's the edges. So now if I turn, I've got snap on here, so if I create a cube, and so I should note, I'll just delete that. So create, I've got interactive creation on, which means that instead of just automatically confusingly creating it at 0, 0, 0, you can actually create it wherever you want. It's a crazy world. So cube, yes. Pressed the wrong button. So cube, yes, and then just drag it up. So that's 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter. So if we export that as an Fbx, okay, so you just from your drop down choose Fbx Export, and I'm going to save it into the specified folder, and then down here I have turned off automatic units. I have file units converted to meters, so scale factor 1.0 to meters. So that should be a 1-to-1 conversion to Unity. Let's see, shall we? So cube test, exporting to the folder, and then if I open Unity, so this is just the I've just made a 3D object here, which is a cube. So this is an object, a game object I've created in Unity. So let's just reset that transform position up here back to it appears to already be reset back to 0, which is a bit weird. Okay, so it is already at the world origin. So let's just, from my folder here, let's just drag down cube test. So I'll drag that into the scene. So you're thinking, oh my god, it's weird and small, but that's because it's not, it's far away. So let's just go back to reset position, and so you'll note now your cube is the same size. But because it has to be more confusing than that, it comes in at 0.01 scale. But this means that, at least from the perspective of modelling in Maya, you'll be able to actually build things to scale. You probably want to make your subdivisions higher on your grid, so without confusing you too much, if you put 5 subdivisions in, that means that each 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 equals a meter. Okay, and that just helps with snapping, so that if I wanted to copy this cube, it's going to snap. It's not going to snap to the grid, and the reason behind that is because the pivot point is at the center of the cube. So if you press D, and then with your grid snap and your vertex snap on, you can drag that over to the corner there, or not, as the case may be. It's flying about like a mad thing. Okay, so there we are, drag to the corner, press your W again for your move controls, your translate controls, and then it'll snap it back to the grid. It's magic. Okay, so let's start building our facades. Okay, so now we want to start building our facades. So if we have a look at the image, so if we human beings the average height of a human is about 1.8 meters, so a doorway is about 2 meters. So your usual average industrial building block or facade block or modular chunk is about 3 meters by 3 meters. So if we go back in here, so just to make it a bit easier, let's just get rid of these, and then let's go to display grid, and let's go back to one subdivision. So that means that each of these squares is 1 meter by 1 meter. So let's create a cube. So this time I want it to be 3 meters by 3 meters. We can create a plane, but I'm just showing you this so that you get the hang of the package a bit more. So modelling tools, so if we go up to the, I'm just turning my head on its side, channel box layer editor. So we want to put, let's just put in 3 by 3 subdivisions. That's going to be in the Z. Oh no, it's not. Okay, so that's 3 by 3. So that'll get started with the subdivisions. We can add some more in with the insert edge loop tool, which we won't do at the minute. So that's has started really. So we'll just go to the face mode. And then what I'll do is I'll just select all of these faces, and then I shall just press delete. So this basically is our facade. So what I'm going to do is I am now going to go back to display so I can still use the snap tool. I'm going to go back to display because it will snap to the grid basically, and just put subdivisions back to 5. So that means that I've got a little bit more granularity, as they say. And so what the other thing I need to do is, if we go back to object mode, we'll see that the pivot again is floating in space. So we need to get our D. We've got Vertex Snap on. Let's just drag that over to the corner. And obviously you always want to put your pivot point in the corner so that you can snap this vertex to this vertex, because this will be the pivot point as it comes into Unity. So it means that modular elements are much more easily snappable if you put it in a sensible place. You'll find most architectural elements that you are dragging into Unity will have the pivot placed certainly on the bottom horizontal plane of the object, so that you can snap it to the ground. Okay, so boring myself, so press W to get back to move mode. So let's press Control D to duplicate it, and now we're snapping it to the grid. So let's just give it a bit of distance. Put another one. So we've got 4 textures. So the point here is that we're going to make 4 facades. It's going to be exciting, let me tell you. So we've built these 4. Let's just save that, and then we shall start adding the mapping and the textures. Okay, so I've got the first facade selected, and we are going to add some UV maps and material. It is going to be exciting, let me tell you. So I don't want that. Oh yeah, I do want that. So let's assign a new material. Let's make it a Lambert. And so what we want to do here is we want to go to color, and then this little tab here, which will open up another confusing overlay, which then you can select a file, and the file again will then give you the option over here to find it, whatever it may be, and I have it. It's not here. I'm just in my top window copying the directory. Okay, so let's just start with let me have a think. Let's just have a go with brick template with window. Okay, so now if we go to show textures, so we can see here that this texture is crackers, and obviously we want this to fit correctly onto this plane here. So how do we go about that? Let's have a think. So the Uving in Maya is a little bit weird. I used to use Max, and that seemed to be a bit simpler. But so you do have your mapping types. So you've got cylindrical, planar, spherical, which are, as they say on the tin. So this is going to push your texture through in a planar fashion. This will wrap your texture in a spherical fashion, and this will wrap it in a cylindrical fashion, and also cap it. So let's have a go at automatic. So for instance, let's just try planar. So that works fine. That doesn't normally work in Maya straight away, but it has this time. So you can remove your UVs, but be a bit careful if you do that, because that'll confuse your integrated development environments like Unity if you have no UV maps. So let's try Cylindrical. So as you can see, this is the actual mapping coordinates. It's trying to stretch it around here, so you can see that it's pulling the texture out at the sides. So let's just go back to planar. Okay, so this is all good. So what we want to do here is if we're going to start adjusting, that's fine. So if we're going to start adjusting edges, so for instance if I wanted to pull this edge around, so I've just selected this edge by double clicking here. So what will happen now is you'll see, I'll just turn snap off now. So if I pull this down, you'll see that we're pulling the texture out, but this doesn't have to happen. So you can, if you double click on your translate tool, and then you can click on preserve UVs, and this should make things beautiful once more. So you can see that it's still having a little bit of trouble, but it's doing its best. And so this is good, and this is a very useful tool for us. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to just undo that, and then we can start adding in some subdivisions. So to be quite honest with you, I was going to add in some more edge loops, but to keep it simple, this actually only requires us really to drag these edges across to a line with the shape of the window. Just double click in there so that it selects the entire edge, and then I double click this one. In fact I do only want that bit. So that's having a bit of trouble there. So for some reason I'm also pulling it out. Right, so I'll tell you why that's happening is because we need to put this onto world coordinate. So as we can see, we've got the pivot point is slightly angled, so this isn't actually the pivot that's angled, it's the way that we're manipulating it. So if you're using any of these tools, you can double click to bring up the options, which is usually where you'll be able to solve problems like this. But we can see we've got axis orientation is custom, and we actually want it to be world. So now you'll know that's aligned it to the correct axes. So it means that it's going to drag this in a straight line like that. Okay, so really again I'm just matching the window lines. So I mean, we could put a curve in here, but it's really unnecessary considering what we're going to be using this for. This is not supposed to be close up for the player. So you might want to drag this out to give it a little bit of depth, in which case we will want to insert an edge loop. So if we just put an edge loop in here, and then put an edge loop in here, and then put an edge loop in here. So now we can extrude this out slightly, but I'll show you what I'm talking about. So the most irritating tool in the entire world is the edge loop tool, because you can never seem to get out of it, and you just seem to be dragging edge loops all over the universe. So press escape, press W, and then we're back to being able to adjust and manipulate the edges. So I want to now go to face mode. So if we go to face mode here, and then I've just selected these three faces by holding shift. If we go to our modelling tools over here, they should always be here. If they're not, then give me a shout. And then what we're going to do is we're going to extrude this out. So let's just make sure. So this, always click on this, because this little tool here means it aligns it with the world, which is what you need. Okay, so we're just going to pull that out there, you see, and so you can see that the planar map is pushing the texture through and giving us a streaky look, but this is not for the player, shouldn't be this close to this. So for the purposes of this exercise, this is just for background scenery, doesn't really matter. We could UV unwrap this and then map this properly, but we'll talk about that in future videos. So I'm going to grab hold of this this large face here. I'm going to extrude this. Click on this again to make it proper, and then we just drag that in. Okay, so the purpose behind this, and we've done it basically, so we can go back to object mode if I can stop. Right, so we've now created some depth for this modular facade section. So when the light, dynamic lights are shining onto this, then you'll see shadows basically. So this is quite useful to give the impression that you've got a living, breathing environment. Okay, just adds a bit of depth, adds a bit more reality, so that it doesn't just look like a load of flat textures. So I'll just do these other four, and then we'll get them all into Unity. Okay, so I'm just going to run you through this process quickly for all four of these, so that you get a good grounding of exactly what I'm doing, which isn't in any way complicated. Okay, so assign new material. Let's do the same thing again. Let's do a Lambert. Let's go back. Oh, this is your history, your construction history. So let's go back to Lambert 4. Let's go forward to the top of the construction history and Lambert 4. So color the same elements as previously. We'll look at. Have we got the correct folder? We haven't. So let me just paste in my correct directory structure. So let's try break text with window 1. Okay, yeah. Again, it's the original map is incorrect, as in the scale is incorrect. So if we go up to UVs and then we go to automatic, I have to have the object selected, and it needs to be in object mode. So I forgot what I was doing. Oh yeah, automatic. Okay, so there we have the texture, which fits nicely. I'll show you what to do in a minute when this when the automatic mapping doesn't work quite as conveniently, which is quite a common issue. So edge, let's just move this up. So let's just pull this middle section of window in, just for the sake of it. So I'm going to do the same thing with this little lip down here as I did over here. Just make a little shelf. Make a little shelf. Okay, so insert edge loop. Yeah, stick an edge loop in there. So back to the nightmare of the edge loop. Press Escape and W. Actually, I need to put in some more edge loops. So just so I can pull this little ledge out. Insert edge loop. Thank you. Escape W. Get out of edge loop mode. Nightmare. Face. Let's just pull these out. So let's go to our modelling tools on your tabs here. Oh, almost moved it there. Not good. So axes looks correct to me. Let's pull that out a bit, and then let's go to this face and let's just extrude that in a bit. I'll show you how to fix these in a moment. Okay, oh yeah, of course we want this thing up here. So that's going to take some more edge loops. So let's just put one in here. Let's put one in here. Let's put one here. And let's put one here. So you know, we're increasing the poly count here. It's not fantastic modelling, because the subdivisions, you normally subdivide equally across your polygonal area, but in this case I am doing it quick and dirty. So, oh, hang on a minute. Yeah, I'm still in edge loop mode, of course. Nightmare mode, as I like to call it. Extrude this out. There we are. So, okay, so that's that one done. You know that sometimes you will attempt to automatically map your or UV map your polygonal object, and you'll end up with this sort of nonsense. So, so there's lots of different ways you can project your maps onto your polygonal object. So for instance, if we were to put camera based, then it looks at the direction of the camera and projects it from there, so in that case it's all quite weird. So if we go planar, then that works, but we should note, like I just showed you, sometimes it'll be offset. Certainly in previous versions of Maya it would always offset it in some weird way. So if you go to your attribute editor and then you look at your history and you go to the latest or the final projection up here, then you'll note here that you've got an option to rotate. So you can usually correct it by going into these fields and just finding the correct rotation plane, but you may be lucky and maybe it will automatically map it precisely and perfectly, so let's keep our fingers crossed. I'm just applying the bottom floor textures, and I just realised that I should point out you want to if you can find, I'm just scrolling through up here, so you want to call your texture something recognisable when these come into Unity, so you'll be able to tell what is what. So if we look at the Lambert 4 here, we probably want to call that top floor window 1, and on this one let's have a look at Lambert 3, top floor. You want to have a consistent naming process. Window naming conventions are very important when you're dealing with a lot of assets. So just another quick note is that we can see this one here, it's got some quite well defined ins and outs. So what I want to do is I'm going to want to align this. Let me just quickly show you. So what I'm talking about, before I confuse myself. So file, yes. Let me have a look. Shot bottom right, open, yes. And then we want to UV automatic. So we'll note here that we want these to align basically. This ridge here wants to align across these two textures. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete this one out, and then I'll just copy this one. Once I've assigned all my subdivisions, I'll just copy it across, and that means we'll get the subdivisions in the same place, so these will match exactly. I'll show you what I'm doing in a minute once I've done it. Okay, so I've added in my subdivisions on my edge loop, excuse me. So let's just go to object mode, and then let's control D this, and W. So I've done this so that obviously these subdivisions are now going to align, so that we'll get the same. In fact, I'll go one further than that, and what I'll do is this is kind of how you have to plan these things. So let's just, actually I think I'm going to need another edge loop here, then escape the nightmare, W. So let's just go to face mode, and then let's just, have I got that one? Let's just extrude that out. Yeah. Modeling tools, and then extrude. Just pull that out. Okay, so it's unable to preserve the UVs. Just not letting me do that. So I'm just going to extrude the bottom out here. I don't know why it's doing that. So just extrude that out. I should also point out that unless this is going to be the end of your building, so this will be the corner, you're going to want to delete these polys out. So delete out any polys that you aren't going to see, just to keep the poly count as low as possible. Anyway, so what I was doing is object mode now. So if we control D this, we can now see that these obviously will snap together. So if I just move these over, So those snap together perfectly and we've got the correct width. Obviously you can measure these so that we have the same width, but it's just a lot easier for me to do this. Okay. Okay, so I just want to apply the final texture. So existing material, and I've broken my own rules and not given it proper names. Let's change that now. So bottom floor right. Okay, so let's just move that out of the way, and then I can basically get adjusting the mesh and extruding for the left hand side. So this is a fairly complicated facade, but it's really a case of trying to simplify this down. So if we just have a look at, I think I'm still in Nightmare Edge Loop mode. So it's really a case of trying to simplify this down, so really just trying to make it as simple as possible. So let's just extrude that in. Okay, so this is the kind of element here that may be an issue. So what I'm going to want to do here is we're probably going to want to drag, let me just start by, so if I go to vertex mode, what I want to do here is I am going to target weld. So let's target weld that to, it's not playing ball, let's target weld that to that, thank you. Target weld that to that, thank you. So I'm going to drag these faces in to give the impression of depth here. So if we go to face mode, get off target weld. Okay, so let's just pull these in and see what happens. So again, I'm going to want to probably get this edge and drag this in. In fact, let's just get both sides of this so that I do the same on both sides. So do I need to? Maybe not. Okay, let's just drag that in to give the angled section. Let's go to vertex mode, let's just drag these in. So it's really a case of, this is kind of the thing you want to be working out, how you're going to create the impression of this being giving it the impression of depth. So I could probably, if I was being crazy, I could probably go to, so I have actually still got, so if we go to vertex here, so I've got, if I look here, I've just selected these vertices here, and we can see we've got two vertices selected. So let's just weld. So they call these features something different in every single package. So in this one it's called merge, I think. So we've got two vertices selected here, we want to merge this. So that's down to one vertex, we've got a merge threshold. So let's just go to face and then let's move that. So now we can see. Let's see if I can keep preserve UVs on. Okay. So that gives us some sort of sensation of depth. And you know, the player's not going to be walking up these steps, so it's really just for the purposes of lighting, so that we can see this actually has depth. I'll probably say that I might extrude this face out. Let's make sure we've got it aligned to the world axis by clicking this little fella here and pull that out. Okay, so that looks ridiculous. Let's knock that on the head. but other than that, I think that's okay. So these two should snap together nicely because of the fact that we've pre-built these lips up here. So that's kind of okay. This isn't. I'm not particularly happy with this, but for the purposes of this exercise, let's just go with it. So just one final little thing before we export to Unity is, so if these things are driving you nuts, without fully UV unwrapping this object, you can just select that and then we can go to give it a planar map. As you can see, what's happened here is it's just pushed the map along this axis. So let's go to our attribute editor and we should be able to rotate that. Let's try this axis. It's going to be wrong. It's not wrong. So, and then we can scale this down, and basically we can find a section of this where, so we can just drag that along there, and then we've given it some nice bricks. The bricks are kind of the same width. So I'm just moving this around. So that's really badly matched up, but you know, you get the idea of the process there. So, so if we go to object mode, so you know it's probably a little bit better than this side, but that's a quick way of doing it. If you want to make these edges, if you want to remove the planar stretching on these elements. Okay.